Okay, I'm here talking with Loren Infeld. Loren is from Travel Pangea. And Loren, thank you for being on Let's Talk Bitcoin today.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Travel Pangea is a travel agency, but it's a little bit different than other travel agencies because y'all accept Bitcoin. Is that right?
That is true, yeah.
So I want to know about what that's like. But first of all, how did you find out about Bitcoin and how did you get to the point where Travel Pangea was working with Bitcoin?
Well, we run in fairly tech-savvy circles, and so we'd heard Bitcoin being tossed around since its inception. My partner at the agency had talked to people right as Bitcoin was getting going, and we had kind of talked about it as a concept, and then started hearing from more and more people that thought it'd be pretty interesting if they could book travel using all this Bitcoin that they had earned or saved up, and so we spent a while researching and deciding, and we chose to give it a go.
Yeah, so are most of your clients individuals or are they, companies that are doing corporate kinds of travel?
We don't do that much corporate. We do individuals, groups. We do a bit of everything. Probably our Bitcoin clients are have been mostly individuals and individual people within groups that are booking and traveling.
Okay, so that's interesting. So there aren't too many companies yet that are doing a lot of their like expenses in Bitcoin to the point where they're paying for travel with Bitcoin.
Not yet, although that would be a really cool development, a nice way to work with companies doing direct Bitcoin transfers.
Yeah, I imagine, we've heard from a lot of companies that they do have some trouble because like the software isn't really there yet for doing serious kinds of accounting with Bitcoin, so they do have some issues with that, I think. But what is your typical client like? Do you have like a stereotypical kind of client? Is it somebody who works for themselves and jets around the world, a Bitcoin millionaire? Tell me about that.
It is always fun working with someone who's got a ton of money or Bitcoin to go do whatever they want because you can book the best adventures. But I think our clients are pretty well varied. But like I said, we have been around the kind of tech savvy young internet or technologically sound people who are doing modern work and cutting edge stuff, and the sort of people who were turned on to Bitcoin early on and were able to take advantage of it. So usually fairly young, adventurous sort of travelers doing all sorts of interesting trips, and we specialize in unusual, odd, or complex itineraries, and so it's always fun to work with these people who have a bit of coin and want to use it to see the world.
Okay, and so are people mostly doing this for personal trips or is it like business trips or maybe mixed?
Mostly personal travel that we've done so far, anyway. I could definitely imagine people moving over to business travel this way, though.
So when you make the arrangements, like first of all, tell me a little bit about what a travel agent does.
Well, yeah, it's kind of funny because I have that conversation a lot with people saying, "Well, can't we just book online?" It's true that not as many people need to come to you for a quick, easy flight to somewhere. But what a travel agent does is really go above and beyond that and help you figure out and shape a vacation to create the perfect experience. So when you're saying, I'd kind of like to go to Asia, rather than just get online and see what you can find and book it, you can talk to me. I've been to Asia many, many times and booked hundreds of people and know the ins and outs, and I can sit with you and figure out, or talk with you online, or like we're doing now, and figure out exactly what it is that you're interested in. Do you want to see temples, or do you want to see monkeys, or do you want to see the best nightclubs in Thailand or something?
I want to see monkeys, Lauren.
Come to the right place. I actually am infamous for my love of monkeys, and my best party trick is I can say monkey in over 50 languages. But I've been attacked by monkeys in a few countries and enjoyed it thoroughly, actually.
Okay, so you're more like a consultant for travel.
Yeah, so essentially not just, get you on a plane from A to B, but help you figure out what you want to do, what works for you, and kind of get you inspired to, instead of just get on a plane and go take some pictures of some famous buildings or something, to really get into what you would enjoy most. To go out to, the monkey forests in Bali then, for example, or my favorite is the Batu Caves in Malaysia, where you climb up a bunch of steps while you watch monkeys running up and down them in 7 seconds. Well, it takes you half an hour to climb up all these steps. But to find the experience that will make your trip the best trip for you.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. And I've heard before that, being a travel agent, I guess, is can be like a really rewarding kind of career. It's pretty flexible, you can kind of do it from anywhere. Are you like, how did you get into the business?
Yeah, it is really rewarding. It's also been it's appeared on some lists of the most stressful jobs. I always explain that, if you're a grocery bagger and you accidentally drop someone's milk, it's not too big a deal. But if you're a travel agent and you get someone on the wrong flight, or someone misses their flight, or you get the panicked phone calls and people crying and trying to figure out what to do of I missed my flight, I'm stranded, help. And so it can be stressful, but it's also really rewarding, especially to do the complicated trips where it's someone's pipe dream. They came to you and said, I've always dreamed of seeing Europe, but I just don't know how to do it. And by the time you finish, they're going out and seeing everything they've always dreamed of, and that feels pretty cool. And I got into it exactly for that reason. I love travel. I've traveled all my life, and I realized people were asking me for advice when they took trips. And so I started out working at a university at a travel agency, um, just because when I was at university, I studied abroad. It absolutely changed how I looked at the world, how I looked at myself and my place in it, and it really profoundly affected me. And I really wanted to help young people do that, to feel the same way and to grow in that way. It's kind of maturing accelerated to learn so much about yourself when all of your surroundings are taken out and you're put into a totally foreign situation. And so that's how I got into it, and did it for years doing that, and then moved on and started my own. And to become more flexible, just like you were saying, technically I could be anywhere in the world and still help you with your travel, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, since this is, yeah, your business, you can decide, okay, we would like to take Bitcoin. And so, when did you start taking Bitcoin? First of all, I want to hear when.
Fairly recently, been within the past few months. It was a long debate for a few months before that, and
Who are you debating with?
well, it was me and my partner who handles kind of the business side. I get to do the fun stuff and send people around the world, and I've got someone to handle the business paperwork stuff that is not nearly as fun as sending people on adventures. The two of us make the main decisions, and we were just really kind of trying to learn as much as we could about Bitcoin and not dive in blind. And we had a lot of concerns about the volatility and things like that. And obviously, a new currency with such a fairly unregulated concept seemed pretty scary. And so it took us a while to decide to take the leap and then actually start initiating and take some payments and learn how it all worked. And, fortunately, we had a lot of very friendly travelers that were able to go easy on us for our first Bitcoin experiences.
Right. And so about what was the time frame for that?
Probably about 3 months ago or so is when we did the first payment.
Oh, okay, so fairly recently.
Yeah, we're newbies to it still, and so we're not super pros, but it's been really a good experience so far.
And so in the last 3 months, about how many clients have you had who wanted to use Bitcoin to do their travel arrangements?
It's not the majority of our business yet. We're actually just starting to market to the idea of looking for clients, specifically Bitcoin clients.
Hmm.
So we've had probably half dozen or so, not a huge amount, but we definitely see the potential. I've had many conversations with people who, when they found out we were accepting Bitcoin, they got excited and started thinking about future plans.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, in 3 months, if you have a half dozen clients, that's one every couple weeks, so that's not too bad.
Yeah, and we hope to, expand out, and I think it's a kind of a unique way. And the development of Bitcoin and the people who got in early on managed to kind of get a decent stash, for some of them at least, of some coin. And it seems like it's a neat idea to take this, kind of a digital virtual currency and spend it on something that's more what people dream on, rather than, say, paying your rent or doing something more practical with it. To take it and have some fun with this currency.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, like, of course, everyone's free to spend their money and their bitcoins however they think is best, but I think travel could be totally practical. I mean, if it changes your life,
That's not to say that travel is impractical, but I used to joke that, back in the day, I would spend my rent money on plane tickets so often.
well, you wouldn't have to pay your rent if you weren't living there for that month, right?
Yeah, well, I've sat outside of many airports staring before my flight home, thinking, now what would happen if I just didn't come, if I just kept traveling? But I found, the practical stuff I'd always find some way to pay for, so I made sure to buy my plane tickets to book my dreams so that I couldn't talk myself out of it. And I've never regretted a single trip I've done. I've been all over the world, and I've helped tons of people do it, and I'd be hard pressed to come up with examples of people going, well, I would have much rather had that $1,000 back than have gone and had this experience. It just doesn't happen. It's a really enriching thing to do. That
I would have rather paid my taxes with that $1,000. No, wait a minute.
not that people shouldn't be financially responsible, but if there's any way to squeeze out, a little bit of money to go play, I think that traveling is a way better thing to invest in than fancy clothes or new rims for your car or something like that.
Right, yeah. So I'm curious about how the business side works for you, at your business. Do you like accept Bitcoin from your clients and then like what do you do? Do you hold on to the Bitcoin and then make the arrangements in dollars? Do you immediately change the Bitcoin into dollars and then use that for the business expenses, or do you do some kind of split between those two?
Well, being kind of new and just getting going, there's definitely not too many vendors, hotels, airlines, anything around the world that's accepting Bitcoin. So we generally have to, at some point, convert it into dollars in order to pay off the vendors for the bookings we do. So far, we've been accepting it in Bitcoin and converting it fairly quickly into dollars, and then moving it into accounts to pay off vendors. Although we have talked about in the future as we grow the business, and especially if we are ending up doing more and more Bitcoin transactions, then creating kind of a buffer where we can sit on Bitcoin for a while and watch the market and see how it goes, and possibly even increase our earnings that way, which would be just an extra bonus perk on top of the business.
Right, yeah. And do you advise people about, I'm picturing, if somebody's going on a trip to Berlin, let's say, and they know that there's bars and restaurants and maybe even places to stay that accept Bitcoin in the neighborhood where they're going, like potentially that could save them a lot on like foreign credit card fees and like traveler's checks and all that crap that people usually have to do when they go to another country. Like, have you had anybody who's kind of asked you about that, or has Bitcoin been able to solve some of those problems?
Not yet, but that's actually where I do see a major potential, because just as a merchant, as someone selling travel to you, then there's fees associated with that. And, we're always looking at ways to be putting the money towards trips and not towards, paying off Visa or MasterCard or somebody their cut of the charge. And so the fact that Bitcoin does have opportunities to do it at very low percentages of fees, and it's an easy way to move money around without losing a lot of it to fees. I think that there's really good potential there, and I would like to look into places, especially hotels and other travel related activities that do deal in Bitcoin, and I would love to partner up with people and kind of have an alliance, maybe start building the reputation and the acceptance in the travel industry of Bitcoin.
Right. The thing that I immediately think of is Airbnb. And I don't know if you're probably familiar with Airbnb, but just for our listeners who may not be, it's a service that allows people to hook up. It allows people who want to maybe rent out a house or a place to stay on a short-term basis, or maybe they're still living there and they want to rent out a room or something. It hooks them up with people who want to rent that place to stay. And so it really expands the possibilities. People can find places to stay that may be significantly cheaper than local hotels and stuff like that. And Airbnb, as I understand it, was actually founded by Brian Armstrong, who is now at Coinbase. I think there could be like a real partnership potentially between Airbnb and accepting Bitcoin, and the potential is there for people to be able to basically buy a hotel or a place to stay with Bitcoin anywhere in the world.
Yeah, I think that it's an emerging technology, just like a few years ago, the concept of booking all your travel through the internet or even using the internet as you travel was a crazy idea, and now you couldn't imagine not doing it. I keep, 5 different apps on my phone that as I travel, whenever I get Wi-Fi, update local currencies and check in itineraries and look at the plans. It's there's always the curve of waiting for humans to wise up to the emerging technologies, basically.
Mm.
I wish I was a big enough company to be the company that leads that charge, but I think that a lot of little places, individual hotels, small agencies like me will be moving that way and accepting Bitcoin, and then it will gain momentum, and then somebody big like Airbnb or someone, a large hotel chain or a tour company or an airline will decide to hop on the not as cutting edge as it was a few years ago, but still pretty hot sort of technology, and then it'll move out and it'll become this radical new thing for the mainstream that hopefully those of us in the know have been using for a while, and the rest of the world is discovering that there's this other way that you can pay for things universally and not deal with, like you were saying, foreign transaction fees can be real surprise killers for people when they get back from their trip and check their credit card statements.
Yeah, actually, let's talk about that for a minute. Let's do a hypothetical scenario here and say I live in New Hampshire and I want to go on a trip to China and see the monkeys, let's say, and and I'm gonna go for 2 weeks and I'm going to use my credit card to pay for as much as I can, but maybe I'll get some of the local currency and change some money while I'm there. How much do you think I could expect maybe to spend in transaction fees? Like what percentage of my total cost from the trip might be in those foreign transaction fees and, changing money and all that kind of stuff? The costs basically that Bitcoin could eliminate.
Essentially, there's different ways to access your money and spend your money, and it's actually something that I point out to my travelers fairly frequently, is to make sure you talk to your bank and try to minimize the amount you pay, because some banks charge for ATM withdrawals, some charge for using it as a credit card, some charge for both, some charge flat rates, some charge percentages. And then, of course, if you just bring a wad of cash, first of all, I never advise that because walking around with a wad of cash does not make you feel very comfortable. But on top of that, you're going to pay transaction fees or commissions. And then, if not that, then they give you a worse exchange rate. So you're not getting, dollar to yuan in your example. So there's usually, most cards charge around 3% extra for fees, some credit cards as high as 10%. So I've had emergencies where I lost a card and I had to use a credit card and got home to a 10% fee on every charge I made.
Oof.
So it can really add up. Say you go stay for 2 weeks in $100 a night hotel and then try to put it all on a card at the end and get caught with that 10% fee. That's what, $140 for that example. Yeah, as you go through and you're, doing day tours and visiting attractions and eating and buying souvenirs, and we spend our money everywhere as we travel and as we do in daily life. And so abroad, yeah, you can see a lot of fees add up, and I think that if we are at a point where you could use Bitcoin more often, you would definitely be shaving those fees way, way down.
Do you help people with like visa issues too? Are you doing that?
Generally, it's a bad idea to make promises as a visa expert, as a travel agent. I do help advise, but I always advise double checking with the government. Travel.state.gov is the best place to find out. I've had a lot of experience with visas all over the world, so I can usually answer general questions, but I do always advise people to double check just to make sure those laws change. I've been in situations where the month before I was going to a country, they did not require a visa in advance, and the point that I was going, they did require it, and I had to scramble and get myself a visa last minute, and it wasn't fun. And so I can help, but I can't guarantee. So I always refer people to the authorities on that as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to picture if there's any way that Bitcoin could help with that, but I'm kind of at a loss, like
That would be challenging because that would be going directly through the governments of the world.
right, they're going to be the last people to embrace innovation.
Bitcoin is the big renegade on that. We're saying we don't need the government to regulate our currencies. We'll just do it ourselves. So it might be hard to go back to the government and say, now that we've done it ourselves, how about you guys work with us on that?
Right.
Yeah, it might be a little challenge for that, but Visa costs usually are a pretty small percentage of your total travel costs.
Gotcha. Unless you're talking about Visa, the credit card company.
Yeah, the credit card company, that can be a pretty large portion of it.
Okay, Lauren, is there anything else you want to add? I mean, this has been really interesting for me, but maybe one last question. When do you see like maybe airlines or hotels like coming online with Bitcoin? What would you predict might be like the time frame for that?
I'd put hotels before airlines. Airlines are not the quickest to adopt trends, and they're also behemoth things that have their own set of magical logic to them.
The word dinosaur came to mind for me.
Yeah, really. Well, I've had to explain to people that you can't really predict. Sometimes, a good example is I'm in Sacramento right now, and a flight from Sacramento to say New York via Atlanta might be $400. But if I just wanted to fly that leg to Atlanta, it might be $900. They have their own sort of logic and reasoning, and they do a lot of algorithms and calculations to try to find out what's the best. But they are kind of a dinosaur thing until we figure out a way to flap our own arms and get ourselves there. Though they're what we've got. So I think that what will happen is some of the low cost carriers, some of the new innovators, people like maybe in Europe, say EasyJet or Ryanair, those sort of people that are doing very low cost flights, and they're the ones that are eking their way into an established business and pushing the limits. I would love to see AirAsia personally in Asia. They're one of the best they're probably the best low cost airline in the world, and those are the people that they make their money by finding ways to lower their expenses. They're the ones that introduced, Ryanair's infamous for their nickel and diming policies, but they're the ones that introduce things like kiosks instead of agents at airports because then you pay less people and cut down your costs. Websites instead of call centers. So doing Bitcoin transactions rather than paying, Visa or MasterCard those fees is another logical way where they can trim down. They land at alternate airports that charge lower taxes. So they're the ones that are looking for ways to keep their costs down because their bread and butter is undercutting the major airlines. So I think they're going to be the ones that will eventually adopt. I would think it's probably not in the next year or two, but hopefully soon thereafter. And in the hotel world, I think that it'll be individual hotels popping up everywhere, accepting it, and then some of the smaller chains following suit, and then the big guys waking up and saying, "Oh, hey, look, there's all this, that there's about 1,200 hotels in London." So not all of them are chains, and when the big chains look around and realize that there's 500 hotels in town that are now accepting Bitcoin, then they'll realize that maybe they need to get on board to stay competitive as well.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It sounds like there's really an opportunity for some innovation in these industries that are not, especially the airline industry that's not traditionally associated with being very innovative, at least in the last few decades.
I think that it's evolved that, 50 years ago, companies could do well by just plodding along and being really good at what they do and working hard. And now innovation is the key to everything. That every company that's doing really well now is because they came up with a really unique idea or a really unique design. And like I said, until we can flap our wings and fly ourselves, then we're going to need the airlines. But I think that we would be drawn as people and as travelers to the ones that are innovating. And I think that Bitcoin is a really solid innovation for them to lean towards.
Yeah. Okay. And one last question. If you had a client who wanted to take a Bitcoin vacation and not just to pay for it in Bitcoin, but like they wanted to go and see the places in the world where there are like Bitcoin intentional communities and they can buy things with Bitcoin, where would you recommend that they go?
Boy, that is a fantastic question that I wish I had a really good answer for. I honestly don't know. That would be something I would do a lot of research for, and I bet you might actually be able to answer that better than me, really, with your better knowledge of the Bitcoin culture. But it's something I'd be interested in finding out. I did see about the people. Was it they were trying to do a honeymoon or just a vacation using only Bitcoin?
Oh, there was a couple who wanted to live the first 3 months of their marriage on only Bitcoin,
Yeah.
but they were in their hometown in Utah or something like that.
Oh, I thought I read about somebody who was trying to do a vacation that way too, and
There could be, and I just don't know about it.
yeah, and so I think that as our Bitcoin sales pick up and as we get the word out about it, I definitely will be researching that and looking for opportunities. And like I said, I'd love to partner with, as a small business ourselves. I always like to try to give business to small local companies operating all over the world as long as I've proven their reliability. And so if I can find individual hotels or tour companies or other travel related companies that are accepting Bitcoin, I would definitely, look to give them business and spread the Bitcoin love and get more people traveling Bitcoin style and thinking about the possibility of doing that.
Cool. All right, Loren. So where can people find you online and if they want to, use your services to book a Bitcoin vacation, where can they go to do that?
Well, we're on most social media. We have travelpangea.com. It's Pangea, not Gaea. We didn't do the official spelling. We went for something a little easier for people to spell, I guess. But we're on Facebook and Twitter and all that as well. Info at travelpangea.com is the email that'll get you the fastest response. And yeah, I guess those are the main ways to find us. And we'll be expanding out our website to have Bitcoin payments where you can go and pay directly on the site via Bitcoin. And
Oh, so right now, if they want to use Bitcoin to pay for it, they have to make arrangements with you kind of by email. Is that how it works?
well, what we've been doing is talking with individual clients, and once we have a plan, because there hasn't really been a need so far of a flat rate or a flat product to purchase, since we're not like say a clothing store where you can buy this T-shirt for $20 and you can just submit a $20 Bitcoin. We'll have been in communication. We'll have been talking. We'll have planned your trip and figured out your plans. And then when it comes time to actually purchase everything, and then we've got your itinerary. It's all set. Here's what we're gonna do: stay in this place, take this flight, do this tour. Then we know the total, and then we just have been invoicing Bitcoin invoices, where then people can pay via Bitcoin once we have the exact amount nailed down. As we do more trips and when we do groups and things like that, where say 30, 40 people are doing the same trip, then it's a set price, and then we can have you go directly to the site and make a payment, purchase this product at this price. Just the travel business it's rare to have this product at this price since we're planning a whole vacation.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. So, but we have been. It's something actually that we've thought about is the ways to put it online so that we don't have to invoice every individual person, but to make it flexible enough that people can go in and make a Bitcoin payment, but also make it for the right amount. We don't want people sending us Bitcoin that isn't the correct amount for their vacation, or paying too little or too much and having to do partial refunding and things. And so it's something we've been considering, the best way to make it as convenient as possible for the clients without creating possible problems and areas for things to go wrong.
Gotcha. All right, Loren Infeld from Travel Pangea, thank you so much for talking with me today. I really appreciate your time. This was a great interview.
No problem. Thank you. I'm glad I could chat with you.
EasyDNS is the Swiss Army knife for your domain names, helping meet their customers' individual needs since 1998. EasyDNS has been an outspoken critic of SOPA and CISPA. EasyDNS was an early supporter of Bitcoin, and now they are proud to sponsor this show. Do business with a company that shares your values. Get a 13% discount when you pay with Bitcoin. Go to bitcoin.easydns.com and be sure to use discount code LTB.